Our sponsor today is AppWork. Best known for exceptional maintenance workflow management, AppWork offers so much more. Optimize operations with its advanced business intelligence that turns data into strategy. Simplify your operations with AppWork's intuitive platform. Service team members love the gamification of maintenance workflows and leaderboards, making everyday tasks a competition for number one. From project management to team communication, AppWork has you covered. Visit appworkco.com today.
Welcome to The Maintenance Mindset, an audio-video podcast brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network. I'm your host, Paul Rhodes, and over the more than 3 decades in the apartment industry, I've had roles that include being on-site, providing services as a vendor, creating and delivering multiple education programs, and active association work. This podcast is centered on the often overlooked role that our on-site maintenance workers play. You know, the men and women that respond in the middle of the night to the toilet call, or the after hours, it's really hot in my apartment request, or my favorite, my ring fell down the drain, get over here now. In other words, the often unsung heroes who are responsible for asset preservation and resident satisfaction. Working in multifamily maintenance provides interesting, sometimes amusing, and often fascinating stories and viewpoints. My encouragement to you is this: whatever you do it with a maintenance mindset. Hey there. This week, I've been getting ready for some upcoming speaking and training engagements, and I've been living a quote all week long. The quote comes from Albert Einstein, and what it says is, "I am neither clever nor especially gifted. I am only very curious." And by living that, I mean, every opportunity I've had this week, I have been asking questions. And where today's topic came from is actually an article that I was reading about the recent power failure that's happened all over Spain and Portugal. I read an article from The Guardian by Helena Horton, that the title of the article was "What Caused the Blackout in Spain and Portugal," and it was dated April 29th of 2025. And in the article, she brought up the question, what about inertia? So, in other words, it's an article about the blackouts that happened over there in overseas, and I'm wondering, what the heck does inertia have to do with losing electricity? So, being curious, I started looking around. And what I discovered was this fascinating concept that the terms inertia and momentum are referred to quite a bit when looking at power grids. And basically what they're insinuating is that if your power grid has nuclear or is gas powered, it is considered to be high inertia or high momentum. And if your power grid is renewables like wind power or solar power, those are low inertia and low momentum. Well, my curiosity got the best of me, and I went down this wonderful rabbit hole. I even pulled out a book I haven't looked at in quite a while, How the World Works, Physics. And this one is by Anne Rooney. And what I found to be really interesting is that the reason why high momentum and inertia power grids are important is that they are very stable. And what this is based on is that inertia, as a scientific terms for, those of us who forgot all about high school, inertia refers to the fact that an object at rest wants to stay at rest. It's kind of like me on Sunday afternoons. I mean, on the couch, I have a high amount of inertia. I want to stay at rest. In that case, I have zero momentum, because momentum is almost opposite of inertia, but it refers to mass of something. In other words, an object that is in motion will want to stay in motion. And if that object has a motion with it, it requires less energy to stay in motion than it would to go from rest to moving. Now, in case you've already detected by the hesitancy in my voice, I am not a physics specialist nor genius. But basically what I take from those two words, inertia and momentum, is the fact that if something is moving, and it is moving at a stable pace and a stable rate, it is much more resilient to changes than if something is not moving very well and not moving very stably. What the articles and things I went on to see was that power grids that have high inertia and momentum get that terminology from these huge magnets and these huge weights that are spinning at a rate of speed caused by their water or gas-powered engines that keep this large magnet, this large weight spinning. And that spinning is what delivers the frequency of energy to us, the end users. Now, the reason why this is important is the heavier the weight is when it's moving at a steady pace, it will deliver a steady frequency. Here in the United States, our frequency of power is delivered at 60 hertz. And what that means, an electrical standpoint, is that our polarity of the electrical energy that's delivered changes from plus to minus. To oversimplify it, pushing to pulling 60 times per second. And what that insinuates is that we have this huge magnet, this huge weight that is spinning at a speed that delivers 60 hertz of electricity out to us in the general public. And as long as that weight continues to spin the same speed, then we will have our stable electrical energy supply. The nice thing about that is if, for whatever reason, either the water source that is going through the turbine that causes that great weight to spin, if that slows or the water level changes, it's going to take a long period of time for that mass, that large weight, that large magnet to slow down and change the frequency enough to cause problems. The same thing for the gas engine. Let's say that the engine, for whatever reason, shuts off, or it needs maintenance, or it needs service. Well, the weight, the inertia, the momentum of this large magnet will keep spinning for a longer period of time. Now, that is our standard energy structure. That's our standard energy that's delivered out to our property, to our homes. And for those of us that use the electricity, that's what we need. However, if we're connected to what is considered a low inertia energy source, meaning if we're using solar power or wind power, those low inertia sources, if for whatever reason the solar panels get to be really, really dirty, or clouds, or at night, or the wind power, the wind stops, or whatever it is that causes those particular power generation, they are subject to almost instant failure. Now, the nice thing is They are very, they require no hydrocarbons and all of the things that go into clean energy. Again, I am not an expert on clean energy. And if you're still with me, there is a reason why I'm going over this. Ultimately, older systems that have those large mass that is spinning with a high amount of momentum, high amount of inertia, they are very resilient to shocks, to changes, to emergency situations. They will keep running for a long period of time before extra energy is required to bring them back up to speed. Newer systems, the low inertia, low momentum electrical energy systems, they are not resilient. They require repairs. They require solutions to be provided much, much faster. Here's why this analogy really struck a chord with me this week, is because on our properties, what momentum and inertia do we have for our on-site teams? I look at it from a maintenance standpoint. How is your maintenance team functioning if we view them through the frame of momentum? In other words, if you have a full team, are they moving together as one solid mass? And if they are moving together, are they all moving at the same speed? In other words, are they resilient to shocks, to changes, to whatever's happening at your community? And for that matter, when a shock happens, when something sudden changes, what is the resiliency factor there? Are they more momentum to where they can handle some shocks, some jolts, some changes in direction? Or do they require a solution to be done very, very quickly before everything falls apart? You see, I tend to think about this as a different way of looking at bench strength. In other words, what is the succession plan at your community, specifically for your maintenance department? Your maintenance supervisor, the person that's running the maintenance side of your asset, the repairs, how resilient are they? Are they stable? Are they steady? Can we, as people who work with them, predict what is going to occur with our maintenance leader tomorrow? Do we have some assurance of what that prediction is? I mean, we could say that about any role that we have on our property. And the reason why I think that's a good question to ask is because if there is some uncertainty, low inertia, low momentum, then it may be time to add some mass to that person. Now, what form does that mass take? Well, it may depend on what we're identifying as needs. For instance, our leader, by the way, I think this does apply to our property manager just as well. You know, the leader of our office team, and quite traditionally, the leader of our entire property. But these same questions can be asked. So if we have somebody that we're working with, which is a low momentum or a low inertia type person, how do we raise that mass? How do we raise that or change that momentum? Well, first, let's broaden their focus. In other words, if this person is so much of a generalist or an expert in only one area, then in that one area, they're covered. It's great. And that's wonderful. We need to have experts. But at the same time, if one thing happens out of the corner of an eye. For instance, on a property, at a community, if you have a major business that suddenly goes out of town, maybe they change locations. Heck, for that matter, right now, there is a lot of uncertainty around the Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia area due to administration changes and all of the things that are going on right there. If you have a community that's in that area and all of a sudden a large employer has decided to completely change their entire focus, your residents are about to go through a shock, and chances are your occupancy is going to change because of that. If your community manager is only set up and your maintenance supervisor is only set up to deal with situation normal, and they're not used to the type of marketing or the type of turns that are going to have to occur through an occupancy change, maybe it's time to broaden that knowledge base. What about if you have a new community manager that their entire property experience as a community manager has been on a lease up? What if your maintenance supervisor has only performed work in a student housing community and not so much on a conventional or affordable? That breadth of knowledge and exposure can help increase the mass, increase the inertia, and increase the momentum of their stability structure. What if you have a group of employees, your entire team? And I'm not just talking about only the maintenance department or the office department, both together. What if your entire team is having to deal with a lot of shocks, a lot of things happening, a little bit here, a little bit there, just a lot of little things? Is your team moving together as a group so that if one area, one department receives a shock, the rest of the team can absorb it and continue to move on? That's where maybe some team building exercises could happen. For instance, what about bringing your office team for a little while one day, maybe leave one behind so there's somebody in the office stays open, but everybody else on the team goes to a vacant apartment and helps get it ready? Or what if everybody goes to the opposite direction? What if you keep one maintenance person available to go respond to emergency calls, but then everybody goes into the office and everyone does a file audit or moves and rearranges the model as a group? That way everybody's involved and everybody's a part of that decision-making process. The goal here is to get an organization that, in the same way the power grid moves with enough consistency that if something changes, there is still a forward momentum over time so that we can weather whatever storm comes to our property and be ready on the other side. That way, we continue to be energized with what happens at our community. Thank you for joining me today on this slight mental curiosity excursion. I appreciate you spending your time with me. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week, and I'll see you somewhere.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Maintenance Mindset. I hope you take away ideas that apply to your current and future career goals. Please check out Maintenance Mindset Minute to hear short-form, high-impact, applicable, maintenance-centered information. Whatever you do today, do it with a maintenance mindset. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. Visit multifamilymedianetwork.com to learn more about our other industry podcasts, thought pieces, and sponsorship opportunities. I'll see you somewhere.